The twin suns of planet Sarath burned high in the crimson sky. The light fell on the grand square of the capital, a place where truth was not found, only fear. Hundreds of alien citizens gathered in silence. In the center stood a young alien girl, Lyra. Her pale blue skin trembled in the heat, her golden eyes filled with terror. She was only 19 cycles old, small and fragile. Yet today she was called a thief. The Sarath High Council had spoken. And when the council spoke, no one dared question it. The air smelled of metal and smoke. Around her, long steel spears stood upright, sharp tips glowing red from heat. The floor itself was a bed of spears. This was the floor of truth, the ancient punishment. Those who sat upon it were said to prove their innocence by surviving. But everyone knew, no one ever survived. From the high balcony, the supreme judge of Sarath, Lord Tarek, raised his clawed hand. His voice echoed through the arena. Lyra of House Senna, you are accused of stealing the sacred energy crystal. Do you deny it? Lyra's voice was soft, almost lost in the noise. I did not steal it. I swear it, my lord. Then you will prove it. Sit upon the floor of truth and let the fire of justice speak, the crowd murmured. Some turned their faces away. Others watched with cruel curiosity. Lyra looked at the glowing spears. Her body shook. She tried to step back, but guards pushed her forward. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she did not cry out. She whispered a prayer under her breath. To no one, perhaps just to herself. Among the crowd stood a human, Commander Ethan Voss. He wore a dark diplomatic uniform with the Earth Alliance insignia. He had been sent here to keep peace between humans and the Sarath Empire. But peace, he thought, did not look like this. Ethan's face was hard, but inside he felt his stomach twist. He had seen war, pain, and death. But this was different. This was cruelty disguised as law. He leaned toward the Sarath aide beside him. You call this justice? He whispered. The aide hissed softly. Do not interfere, human. This is our tradition. You are a guest here. Ethan's jaw clenched. His eyes stayed fixed on Lyra. He could see the terror in her trembling hands. He saw how young she was. Too young for this kind of suffering. The drums began to beat. The guards forced Lyra to her knees at the edge of the spear floor. The heat from the metal burned her skin. She could feel it even before she touched it. Her mind screamed, I did nothing wrong. Why, the judge raised his hand. Begin. The guards pressed her shoulders. Slowly, painfully, she was pushed down. The sharp metal tips pierced her skin. A scream tore from her throat. A sound so full of pain it silenced the crowd. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Every second felt like a knife in his chest. His mind flashed back. His sister, years ago, crying for help in a war camp while soldiers laughed. He couldn't save her then. He wouldn't watch another innocent die now, but he couldn't move yet. Not here, not with all eyes on him. Lyra's breathing grew weak. Blood ran down her legs. Her eyes were losing light, her body trembling uncontrollably. Yet through her pain, she whispered, I didn't steal anything. The crowd stayed silent, not out of respect, but fear. Ethan took a small step back, pretending to turn away. His hand brushed against a small device in his pocket, a communicator. He pressed it slightly, sending a signal to his ship orbiting above the planet. A coded message, prepare extraction. No one noticed. The judge declared, let this be a lesson. None are above Sarath law. The guards began to drag Lyra's bleeding body away. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had seen enough. He took one last look at Lyra. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, her eyes filled with silent pain and a question. Why? Why no one helps? Ethan turned away, but inside his mind he already knew. This was the moment that would change everything. He whispered under his breath so softly no one could hear. Not again, not this time. And in that moment under the burning suns of Sarath, a human heart made a silent promise, a promise that would soon shake an empire. The twin suns had started to fade when Commander Ethan Voss returned to his quarters. The silence of the Sarath palace was thick, heavy with the weight of what he had just witnessed. He removed his gloves and his hands trembled. The blood of that young alien girl, Lyra, still burned in his memory. Every scream, every tear, every moment of her pain played again and again in his mind. He poured himself a glass of water, but it tasted like dust. They call it justice, he muttered. But it's nothing more than cruelty. A soft beep came from the small communicator on his wrist. It was his ship's AI, Nova. Commander, it said in a calm female voice, your signal was received. Are you confirming extraction protocol? Ethan stared at the floor for a long moment. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to storm back into that arena and pull Lyra out with his own hands, but he also knew the cost. If a human interfered in Serath law, the peace treaty between Earth and the Serath Empire would be broken. Billions could die in another interstellar war. He sank into his chair, face in his hands. Not yet, he whispered. Just not yet. Outside his chamber window, the alien city glowed with strange colors, tall crystal towers and floating platforms. It looked beautiful from a distance, but to Ethan it was a cage built on fear. A soft knock broke the silence. The door slid open and a Serath diplomat entered. Tall, silver-skinned, eyes like cold fire. It was Ambassador Kor, the one assigned to watch over Ethan's mission. Commander Voss, Kor said, his voice calm but sharp. You seemed disturbed by today's ceremony. Ethan didn't look up. Disturbed? I watched a child bleed for something she didn't do. Kor's lip curved into a strange smile. The floor of truth does not lie. If she was innocent, the fire would not harm her. Ethan stood, anger flashing in his eyes. I've fought monsters before, Ambassador. I know when I'm looking at one. The Serath narrowed his eyes. Careful, human. Your tongue might start a war faster than your weapons. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and steady. Maybe some wars are worth fighting. For a moment, silence filled the room. Two species, two worlds, one truth between them. Then Kor spoke again, this time colder. Do not forget your orders, Commander. You are here for peace, not to play hero. He turned and walked out, the door sliding shut behind him. Ethan stood still, jaw tight, breathing hard. The word hero echoed in his mind like a curse. He had once been called that, years ago during the Battle of Orion, but heroism had cost him everything. His sister, his unit, his peace. He sat down again and opened a small hologram. A young human girl appeared and his sister smiling alive. Her laughter filled the room for a moment before it faded into static. He closed his eyes. I couldn't save you, he whispered. But maybe I can save her. He tapped the communicator again. Nova, he said quietly. Activate surveillance. Track the girl from the arena. I want to know where they took her. Affirmative, Nova replied. Accessing city surveillance network? Tracing biological signature. Ethan paced the room while waiting. His heart pounded like a war drum. Every second felt longer than the last. Finally, Nova's voice returned. Target located. Subject Lyra has been transferred to the lower detention chambers beneath the Hall of Judgment. She is alive, but injured. Ethan's breath caught. Alive. That one word sparked something fierce inside him. Hope mixed with rage. Nova, he said. Prepare an escape route from the palace to the docking bay. Silent approach. No detection. Understood, Commander. Estimated success rate 23%. Good, Ethan muttered, grabbing his jacket and plasma pistol. I like those odds. He opened a small storage case under his bed. Inside were things he wasn't supposed to have. Stealth field chips, breaching tools, and an Earth Alliance combat blade. Tools of a soldier, not a diplomat. As he armed himself, his reflection appeared in the mirror. Tired eyes, a scar across his jaw, and a look that once belonged to a man who swore he'd never fight again. Looks like I lied, he said softly. He stepped into the hallway. The lights dimmed as night cycle began. The guards were fewer now, shadows longer. He moved like a ghost, silent and fast. From above, the palace's glass towers glowed blue, reflecting the stars. Somewhere down there, Lyra lay broken and alone. And somewhere in Ethan's chest, a storm was waking. He knew this was madness. He knew one wrong move could destroy the fragile peace between worlds, but he also knew one truth. Peace built on the suffering of the innocent was no peace at all. Ethan Voss was done watching, and before the next sunrise, every Serath in that palace would know what happens when a human stops obeying orders. Night fell over the planet Serath like a silent curse. The twin suns had sunk behind the black cliffs, leaving the city glowing under cold blue lights. The grand palace stood tall in the distance, a monument of shining crystal, hiding darkness behind beauty. Commander Ethan Voss stood near his window, staring at the city below. He could still hear her screams. Lyra, the young alien girl they called a thief. Her voice, weak and trembling, had carved itself into his memory. He pressed his hands against the glass. His reflection stared back, tired eyes, a scar running down his face, and the look of a man who had seen too much. He was a soldier once, now a diplomat, a man who came to keep peace between Earth and the Serath Empire, but what he had witnessed today didn't look like peace. It looked like hell. A soft chime broke the silence. The voice of his ship's AI, Nova, filled the room. Commander Voss, your distress signal was detected. Do you require extraction? Ethan didn't answer at first. His eyes stayed locked on the horizon where the execution platform stood like a dark scar against the city lights. Finally, he spoke. No, not yet, just monitor all communications from the Hall of Judgment. Understood, Nova replied. Ethan turned away from the window and walked to the table. His uniform jacket lay folded there next to a small hollow chip. He pressed it, and the image of a young woman appeared, his sister Mara. Her smile was bright, her laughter silent but alive in his memory. She was gone now. Taken years ago in a war where truth had no meaning, only power. Lyra's face had reminded him of her, and the same fear, the same helplessness. Ethan took a deep breath and whispered, I couldn't save you, Mara. But maybe I can save her. The door slid open without a sound. A tall, silver-skinned Serath entered. His long black robe shimmered with strange runes. This was Ambassador Kor, the Serath liaison to the human delegation. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. You are troubled, Commander, Kor said smoothly. You should rest. The Council's decisions are not yours to question. Ethan turned to face him. I didn't come here to question, he said coldly. I came here to observe peace. But what I saw today wasn't peace. It was torture. Kor smiled faintly as if speaking to a child. You humans still misunderstand justice. The floor of truth is sacred. It decides guilt without bias. Ethan's voice hardened. It decides nothing. It kills the weak. You call it truth only because no one lives to deny it. The air between them grew tense. Kor's eyes narrowed. Careful, human. You are a guest here. And guests who forget respect often don't leave. Ethan stepped closer. His tone was steady, low. Try me. For a long moment they stood face to face. Then Kor turned, his robe sweeping across the floor. Do not make a mistake, Commander Voss. You have no idea what forces you are dealing with. The door closed behind him, leaving silence once more. Ethan exhaled slowly. His hands shook, not from fear but from fury barely contained. He moved to his desk and activated a small console. A map of the palace appeared, glowing in soft blue light. He zoomed in on the underground levels, the detention chambers where the Serath kept prisoners who were awaiting truth. Nova, he said quietly, scan the chambers. Look for any life signatures that match the girl from the trial. Searching. The AI replied. A few seconds passed. Then a soft tone sounded. Match found. Subject alive. Minimal movement. Cell 47B, lower east block. Ethan's heart jumped. She's alive. He leaned back, thinking. His orders were clear. No human interference in Serath law. Breaking that rule could start another war. Billions of lives were at stake, but one innocent life was already bleeding. He clenched his fists. If peace demands silence, he said, then peace is the enemy. He opened a metal case hidden under the floor panel. Inside were relics of a past life, an Earth Alliance combat pistol, a stealth chip, and a small knife engraved with his sister's name. He ran a thumb over the blade. Guess I'm a soldier again, he murmured. Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky. Lightning flashed over the glass towers, painting the city in ghostly light. Ethan pulled on his jacket, clipped the pistol to his side, and stepped toward the door. Nova, he ordered, plot a route to the detention cells. I want stealth access, no alarms, no detection. Affirmative, said the AI. Probability of success 21%. Ethan smirked. Good. That means they won't expect it. The door slid open and he stepped into the hallway. The palace was quiet, asleep. Shadows danced along the walls. Somewhere below, a girl waited in the dark, broken, hurt, and forgotten. But tonight, someone was coming for her, a human. And for the first time in Serath history, A human heart was about to defy an empire. The corridors of the Sarath Palace were silent, lit only by the dim blue light from floating energy orbs. The night shift guards walked lazily, unaware that danger had already entered their walls. Commander Ethan Voss moved like a shadow. His uniform was gone, replaced with black stealth armor. A small device on his wrist shimmered. The stealth field flickered, bending light around him, almost making him invisible. His boots made no sound. Every move was precise, every breath measured. He was no longer the diplomat Earth had sent. He was the soldier he once swore he'd never be again. Far below the palace, in the underground chambers, Lyra lay in a dark cell. Her body was weak, her back torn and bleeding from the punishment. The air was cold and smelled of rust and pain. Chains bound her wrists, and faint blue energy pulsed around them, a containment field that drained her strength. She whispered to herself, her voice shaking, "I didn't steal anything. I didn't." Her words faded in the darkness. No one was listening. No one ever did, except this time someone was. Ethan reached the lower levels, guided by the soft voice of his AI, Nova. Turn left ahead. 2 guards approaching. Thermal weapons detected. Ethan crouched behind a column, his pulse steady. When the guards passed, he activated a short pulse grenade. A silent flash. The energy fields around their armor shorted out, and both guards collapsed before they could even shout. He dragged them into the shadows. "Nova," he whispered. "Status?" "All clear, Commander. Cell block 47B is 20 meters ahead." Ethan nodded and moved forward. His eyes scanned the glowing blue doors. Each one held a prisoner, each one filled with silence. But one door caught his attention. Its power light flickered weakly like a heartbeat fading away. He stopped. "That's her." Inside the cell, Lyra lifted her head at the faint sound of footsteps. She expected another guard, maybe another round of pain. But what she saw was something else. A figure outlined in faint light crouching near the door. The field flickered and the figure became clear. A human. Ethan deactivated the lock with a soft click. The door slid open. He stepped inside. Lyra's eyes widened in confusion. "You? From the arena? Why are you here?" Ethan knelt beside her, cutting the energy cuffs with a plasma blade. "To get you out," he said quietly. "Can you walk?" She shook her head weakly. "They took my strength." The energy field. "I can't." Without a word, Ethan lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light. Her skin was pale, her body trembling. "Don't worry," he said, his voice calm but full of steel. "You're going home." Lyra's voice cracked. "You'll die if they catch you." Ethan gave a faint smile. Wouldn't be the first time. Alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed through the corridor. The stealth field on Ethan's armor flickered and died. "Nova," he shouted. "Detection field triggered," the AI replied. "Multiple hostiles approaching from 3 directions." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we fight." He set Lyra behind a heavy column. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, burning holes in the walls. Ethan fired back with deadly precision. 3 shots, 3 enemies down. He moved fast, rolling to cover, firing again. His combat instincts returned like an old memory he thought he had buried forever. Lyra watched in awe, a human fighting trained Sarath soldiers alone. For the first time, she saw something strange in her heart. Hope. A massive explosion shook the corridor. Dust and smoke filled the air. Nova's voice echoed in his earpiece. "Commander, extraction route compromised. Secondary route available through the old transport tunnels beneath level 9. "Understood," Ethan said, picking Lyra up again. "Mark it." He ran down the burning hallway, boots sliding on the smooth floor. Guards appeared at the end of the corridor, but Ethan didn't stop. He threw another pulse grenade, the blast echoing like thunder. The floor trembled. The lights flickered. Finally, he reached a narrow shaft leading downward, a maintenance tunnel, dark and filled with steam. He slid down, holding Lyra close. The metal burned against his gloves, but he didn't care. When they reached the bottom, Lyra whispered, "Why are you doing this?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, his eyes heavy with memories. "Because someone once needed me," he said softly. "And I didn't come. Not again." The tunnel opened into a vast chamber filled with old machinery. Ahead, through a cracked metal gate, faint moonlight shone. Freedom. But behind them, the echo of boots grew louder. Dozens of Sarath soldiers were following. Ethan set Lyra down gently and aimed his weapon toward the dark passage behind them. "Go," he said. "What about you?" she asked, fear in her voice. He smiled faintly. "I'll catch up." Lyra hesitated but then turned and limped toward the light. Ethan took a deep breath, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Let's see if you monsters bleed," he whispered. And in that dark tunnel, the sound of plasma fire roared. One human against an empire. The underground tunnel shuddered as explosions echoed above. Dust fell like ash and the smell of burnt metal filled the air. Commander Ethan Voss ran through the narrow passage, his breath heavy, the wounded girl Lyra clinging weakly to his shoulder. Behind them, shouts and plasma fire lit the darkness. Serath soldiers were closing in, dozens of them. Their heavy steps pounded like war drums. "Keep your head down," Ethan shouted, firing blindly over his shoulder. Blue plasma bolts slammed into the walls, leaving glowing scars. Lyra coughed. "They won't stop. They'll kill you for helping me?" Ethan's voice was calm, but his eyes were fire. "They can try." He turned a corner, kicked open a maintenance hatch, and climbed up a rusted ladder. The tunnel opened into a massive hangar, long forgotten, filled with dust and silence. Old ships rested like ghosts covered in shadows. Ethan lowered Lyra carefully. "Stay here. Don't move." He moved quickly, scanning each ship with his wrist device. Most were dead, no power, no fuel. But at the far end, one engine pulsed faintly with a dim orange glow. A small transport vessel, half broken but alive. Ethan smirked. "You'll do." He carried Lyra aboard, setting her on a seat beside the control panel. Her eyes were half closed from pain, her voice barely a whisper. "You should have left me. You don't even know me." Ethan looked at her, his tone quiet but firm. "You didn't deserve what they did. That's enough for me." The ship's engines groaned as he powered them up. Dust and fire burst from the exhausts, filling the hangar with noise. Red lights began to flash on the walls, and the Serath had found them. "Hold on," Ethan yelled, pulling the throttle. The ship screamed forward, breaking through the hangar doors in a storm of sparks and smoke. The night sky exploded into view, a sea of black and silver stars. Behind them, the Serath city glittered like a jewel, now alive with alarms. A voice came through the comm, cold and sharp. "This is Commander Relak of the Serath Guard. You have committed treason, human. Power down your vessel immediately or face destruction." Ethan smirked, flipping a switch. "Yeah, not today." He pushed the engines harder, and the ship shot upward through the clouds, flames trailing behind. But he wasn't alone. 3 Serath interceptors launched from the Capitol Tower, chasing him through the upper atmosphere. Their blue lights cut across the darkness like hunting eyes. Lyra's weak voice broke the silence. "They're faster. You can't outrun them." Ethan grinned slightly. "Maybe not, but I don't need to outrun them." He pressed a button, opening a hidden panel beside the controls. Inside were a few old military upgrades, relics of Earth's war years. Let's give them a little surprise. He switched the ship into manual and dove sharply downward. Plasma fire chased them through the clouds, painting the sky with burning streaks. One shot grazed the hull and alarms screamed. The ship rattled violently. Lyra screamed and grabbed the seat. "We're hit." Ethan steadied the controls. "Not yet." He flipped the ship upside down, spinning through the smoke. The pursuing Serath fighters overshot, confused for a moment. That was all he needed. Ethan pressed the launch trigger. 2 small drone missiles shot backward, silent and fast. A moment later, boom! The sky burst with light. One Serath ship disintegrated, spinning out of control. The other 2 split apart and kept firing. "Nice try, human," came the enemy's voice over the comm. "But your courage ends here," Ethan smirked. "We'll see." He glanced at Lyra. Her eyes were wide, full of fear, and something new. Hope. Minutes later, they broke free from the planet's gravity. Stars surrounded them and the blue curve of Serath faded below. But then, a shadow appeared in the distance, a massive Serath warship. Black as night, its wings spread wide like a monster rising from the void. Its cannons glowed red. Lyra's voice trembled. "That's the Dreadnought. Their flagship." "You can't fight that." Ethan's expression hardened. "No, but I can make them chase me." He accelerated toward an asteroid belt nearby. The warship fired. Beams of energy cut through space, missing by inches. The entire ship shook from the shock waves. "Nova," he called. Deploy countermeasures and jam their sensors. Working, the AI replied. But power is dropping fast. Hull integrity at 63%. Ethan wiped the sweat from his forehead. It'll have to be enough. The transport dived into the asteroid field. Rocks spun in all directions, smashing against the hull. The Serath warship followed, its smaller ships weaving through the debris like predators. Lyra held onto the seat, watching as the asteroids flashed by like spinning blades. You'll get us killed. Ethan grinned tightly. Not if I get them killed first. He guided the ship into a narrow gap between two giant rocks, scraping metal. The warship tried to follow. Too big, too slow. The front of the massive ship struck an asteroid, tearing through it in a burst of fire and debris. Ethan turned sharply, pushing the engines to their limit. The transport rocketed out of the asteroid field, leaving the wreckage behind. For a few seconds, there was silence. Only the soft hum of the engine. Lyra looked out the window, tears shining in her eyes. We're alive. Ethan nodded, but his face was grim. For now. He stared at the radar. Hundreds of red dots appeared, spreading across the stars. They'll send more, he said. And next time, they won't miss. He leaned back in his seat, eyes still on the screen. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The stars outside burned cold and distant. The small transport ship drifted in silence, hidden deep within a dark asteroid field. Its engines were shut down to avoid detection. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. Commander Ethan Voss sat in the cockpit, staring at the radar screen. No movement. No signals. For now, they were safe. Behind him, Lyra rested on a stretcher. Her wounds had been cleaned, but her body still trembled from exhaustion. Every breath sounded fragile, like glass cracking. Ethan poured a bit of water into a small cup and held it to her lips. Drink slowly, he said. She nodded weakly, her golden eyes half open. You could have left me, she whispered. Why risk your life for me? Ethan gave a faint, tired smile. Because nobody else would. He turned away, checking the navigation system. The coordinates blinked red. Fuel low, hull damaged, weapons offline. They had escaped, but barely. Minutes passed in silence. Only the soft hum of the emergency lights filled the room. Lyra suddenly spoke, her voice trembling. You don't understand what you've done, human. By saving me, you've made yourself their enemy. Ethan looked over his shoulder. Then tell me why. What are they hiding that's worth killing a child over? Lyra hesitated, her eyes falling to the floor. You wouldn't believe me. Try me, Ethan said, his tone steady. She took a deep breath. The sacred crystals, the ones they worship, the ones they say power their cities, they're not stones. They're alive, Ethan frowned. Alive? What do you mean? They are living beings, Lyra whispered. We call them the Solari. They were once free, creatures of light that floated through space, feeding on the energy of stars. The Serath captured them centuries ago. They trapped them inside crystal prisons and drained their life to power their empire. Ethan froze. The air felt colder. You're saying the crystals are conscious? Yes, she said softly. They feel. They scream when they're harvested. But no one hears them, no one except me. He stared at her, his mind spinning. How do you know this? Lyra touched the side of her neck, revealing a faint glow beneath her skin. Because I was born with their light inside me. My mother was one of the researchers who found the truth. When she tried to expose it, they killed her, and they called me cursed. Ethan's eyes softened. That's why they accused you of stealing. You didn't take anything, you discovered what they were hiding. Lyra nodded. Tears slid down her cheeks. They used me as proof of their lies. They said I was infected by the energy, a thief of sacred power. I was just a reminder of their crimes. Ethan leaned back, rubbing his forehead. All this time, humans thought the Serath were advanced because of technology. But it's not tech, it's slavery. Energy slavery, Lyra whispered. And now that you've seen it, they'll come for you too. They'll call you a traitor to the peace treaty. Ethan chuckled dryly. Peace built on chains isn't peace. It's a cage. For a while, neither spoke. The ship drifted silently through the black void. Then Ethan stood and walked to the control console. Nova, he said. Run a deep scan on the power core of this ship. If these crystals are alive, I want to know how many are being used. The AI's calm voice replied. Scanning. Analysis complete. The ship's reactor contains a Serath core with active life signatures. 37. Estimated age range young. Ethan's heart sank. Young, you mean? Yes, Commander, Nova said softly. The energy inside the reactor is alive and aware. Lyra closed her eyes in pain. They even use their children. Ethan clenched his fists. We're shutting it down. I'm not flying a ship powered by murder. He pulled the emergency lever, cutting the main power line. The lights dimmed instantly, but the faint humming inside the walls, the heartbeat of trapped life, stopped. Silence filled the cabin, heavy and pure. Lyra opened her eyes. You freed them, Ethan nodded. If they were alive, they deserved freedom. Even if it costs us, she smiled faintly. You're different from them. From all of them. Ethan looked out the window at the stars. Maybe. Or maybe I just got tired of watching the innocent die while monsters call it law. Suddenly the radar beeped. Red lights flashed again. A massive object appeared on the screen, a Sarath cruiser. Nova's voice was urgent. Incoming vessel. They've tracked our ion trail. Intercept in 2 minutes. Ethan sighed, his hand tightening on the control lever. They never give up, do they? Lyra's voice was soft but steady. If they catch us, they'll take me alive. You have to let me go. Ethan turned to her, his expression fierce. I don't leave people behind. Not anymore. He powered up the engines. The ship roared back to life. Hold on, Lyra. We're not done yet. As the stars blurred into streaks, the small human ship surged forward into the darkness. One human, one alien, and a truth powerful enough to destroy an empire. And behind them, the war had already begun. The stars outside twisted into streaks of light as the small transport ship roared through hyperspace. Inside, alarms screamed and red lights flashed across the cockpit. Commander Ethan Voss gripped the controls, sweat running down his neck. Every system warning blinked at once. Power core unstable, oxygen dropping, hull breach detected. Beside him, Lyra held onto the seat, pale but awake. They're still following, she said weakly. They'll never stop. Ethan's voice was calm, steady. Then we make them stop. Behind them, a Sarath cruiser tore through hyperspace, massive and black, firing plasma bolts that burned through the void. Each blast shook Ethan's ship like thunder. Nova! He shouted. Report. Main engines at 42%. Reactor integrity critical. Life support failing in 9 minutes. Lyra looked at the flickering lights and whispered, We can't win this. Ethan glanced at her, eyes sharp but gentle. Winning isn't the point anymore. It's about what comes after. She frowned, confused. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Not yet. Suddenly a voice hissed through the comm, and deep, cruel, and familiar. Commander Voss, you should have stayed silent. Ethan froze. That voice, an Ambassador Core. He switched on the transmission. You again, Ethan said coldly. Didn't think you'd get your hands dirty. Core laughed softly. Oh, I'm not coming for you. You brought the infection with you. The girl, the cursed one. She belongs to us, Lyra flinched. Ethan's hand tightened on the controls. She belongs to no one. Then both of you will burn, Core said, and the line went dead. Almost immediately, the ship shook violently. A bright explosion tore through the rear hull. Fire burst from the corridor. Ethan spun around. Nova, seal bulkheads. Attempting to. The AI's voice glitched, then went silent. Lyra coughed, choking on smoke. Ethan. He grabbed a fire suppressant module, spraying white foam along the burning walls. But then said movement. Out of the smoke, a dark figure emerged. He was a Sarath soldier. His armor shimmered like liquid metal. A stowaway. He had been hiding aboard since their escape. Ethan's hand went for his pistol, but the Sarath was faster. A blast of blue plasma hit Ethan's shoulder, throwing him to the floor. Pain shot through his body, but he rolled, grabbed his weapon, and fired back. The Sarath staggered, roaring, his armor sparking. Lyra crawled behind a console, terrified. Ethan! Stay down, he shouted. The Sarath lunged forward, swinging a blade of glowing energy. Ethan blocked it with his combat knife. Sparks flew. They struggled, the blade inches from his throat. Humans are weak, the Sarath hissed. You bleed too easily. Ethan grinned through his pain. Maybe, but we fight harder. With a sudden surge, he slammed the knife upward, piercing the creature's neck. Blue blood splattered the floor. The Sarath fell, lifeless. Ethan stumbled to his feet, breathing hard. His shoulder burned, his body shaking. Lyra ran to him. You're hurt. Later, he said. We need to fix the reactor before it blows. They rushed to the engine room. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The energy core pulsed violently, cracks spreading through the crystal casing. Ethan stared at it. He could almost feel the pain inside, the living energy screaming silently. Lyra's voice trembled. The Solari inside? They're dying. Ethan's mind raced. If the reactor exploded, it would destroy everything. Them, the cruiser, maybe even the nearby starfield. He pulled open a control panel. We can reroute the power. But someone has to stay here and hold the manual override. Lyra's eyes widened. You can't, you'll die. He smiled faintly. Someone has to make sure you get out. She shook her head, tears forming. No, we'll find another way. There's no time, he said softly. You're the only one who knows the truth about the Solari. The galaxy needs you? Not me. Lyra grabbed his arm. You don't have to do this. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the world seemed still. I lost my sister because I didn't act when I should have. I won't make that mistake again. He pressed a small data chip into her hand. This holds everything. Their crimes, their technology, their lies. Take it. Find someone who'll listen. Lyra shook her head, sobbing. I can't leave you. He smiled, though his voice cracked. You already saved me, Lyra. You reminded me what it means to be human. He pulled her toward the escape pod, sealed the hatch, and whispered through the glass. Now go! The pod launched, shooting into the void. Lyra watched through the small window, her tears floating in zero gravity. Inside the ship, Ethan turned back toward the reactor. The warning lights flashed red. He placed his hands on the manual override, the heat burning his skin. Let's finish this, he whispered. The Sarath cruiser appeared on the radar, closing in. Ethan's ship, glowing with unstable energy, turned toward it like a burning comet. Kor's voice crackled through the comm. What are you doing, human? Ethan smiled faintly. Ending this. The reactor went critical. Light swallowed everything. A star was born in that moment, bright, wild, and alive. Far away, drifting in silence, Lyra's escape pod floated among the stars. She watched the explosion bloom like sunrise, lighting the void. Her hand trembled around the chip. She whispered, voice breaking, Goodbye, Ethan. And somewhere, deep in her heart, she swore his sacrifice would not be forgotten, not by her, not by the galaxy. Silence filled the void. The explosion had faded, leaving only the soft glow of distant stars. The Sarath warship was gone. Nothing remained but drifting metal and ash, shining faintly like dust in sunlight. Inside a small escape pod, Lyra floated in darkness. Her eyes were swollen from tears, her body weak, but her spirit was awake. Through the tiny window, she watched the spot where Ethan Voss had vanished, the human who had broken every law to save her. For a long time, she said nothing. Then softly she whispered, He kept his promise. The pod drifted for hours, maybe days, and time lost all meaning. Her oxygen levels dropped, her vision blurred, and still she held the small data chip close to her chest. It was warm, as if still carrying Ethan's heartbeat. When she awoke again, there was light. The escape pod had been found by a group of ships, old, rusty, and marked with rebel symbols. The Freeborn Fleet, a hidden network of alien refugees who had escaped Sarath control long ago. When the pod doors opened, a group of beings surrounded her. Tall insectoid workers, scaled warriors, and humans too, all wearing the same emblem, a star breaking its chains. A voice called out, She's alive. Get her to medbay. Lyra tried to speak but could only whisper, The human. Ethan. He saved me. The commander of the fleet, an old reptilian named Kale, bent beside her. Then his courage just saved us all. Days passed. Lyra healed slowly, her body recovering from pain. But her mind carried a heavier wound, the memory of Ethan's sacrifice. She spent her days studying the chip he had given her. When she finally connected it to a data core, blue holograms filled the room, documents, recordings, and messages Ethan had gathered during his mission. There were images of the Solari, glowing beings of light trapped inside crystal prisons. There were files of Sarath scientists discussing harvest quotas. And there was one final message recorded by Ethan himself. Lyra pressed play. The projection showed him in the ship's cockpit, calm and focused. His voice was quiet but strong. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. And that's okay. My name is Commander Ethan Voss, Earth Alliance. I came here for peace, but what I found was slavery disguised as order. The Serath have built their empire on stolen life. If peace means turning away from that, then peace is a lie. Don't let my death be silence. Make it a sound they can't ignore. The message ended. Lyra sat there for a long time, tears rolling down her cheeks. Then she looked up, her eyes burning with new fire. I won't let you be forgotten. Over the next weeks, the freeborn fleet spread Ethan's recordings across the galaxy. His words became a message of defiance. On dozens of worlds, slaves whispered his name. In the deep mines of Serath, workers began to refuse orders. Even among Serath soldiers, rumors spread about the human who defied the council, the man who flew his ship into a warship to save a single innocent life. The Serath tried to erase the story, calling it human propaganda, but it was too late. The legend had already escaped. Everywhere, beings began to say the same words. One human stood against an empire. Months later, Lyra stood on the bridge of a new ship, the Voss, named after him. It wasn't large, but it was the first vessel built by free hands, powered not by captured Solari, but by living ones who had chosen to help. Their light glowed gently through the ship's walls like starlight breathing. Beside her, Commander Kale asked, "You're sure about this, girl? Once we strike the Serath fleet, there's no turning back." Lyra nodded. He didn't turn back. "Neither will I." She touched the small crystal hanging around her neck, a fragment of Ethan's destroyed ship, still faintly warm. "Ethan gave his life to show us who we could be," she said softly. "Now it's our turn to finish what he started." Kale smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Then let's make the stars remember his name." The ship engines roared to life. Around them, hundreds of rebel ships moved into formation, some small, some old, some barely holding together, but all united under one cause. Lyra looked out at the stars, her voice steady. "For every life they took, for every world they silenced, for the human who stood when no one else would, we rise." The fleet surged forward, breaking through the dark clouds of space like dawn rising after endless night. And as they vanished into the distance, their radios carried a single message across the galaxy. He was just one human. But one was enough.